holding out a classic sidekick domino mask to Holden. Chronic says,
"Quick, kid, put on this mask! You gotta protect your secret identity!"
From who?
Page 14, panel 1. Exterior of the mud pit from Dark Knight Returns. In the same mud pit where Batman fought the mutant leader in The Dark Knight Returns is a mutant leader-looking version of Cockknocker. The mutant gang looks on. Use image from Dark Knight Returns as reference. Cockknocker. I will play. You know what? You can do Heath Ledger. Can you do Mark Hamill?
Of course I can.
Let's do it. All right.
So you be Cockknocker.
Lunchman! Face me, fool. I'll kill you. I show you who rules Red Bank.
Holy shit. Give it up, man. How many more Jokers can you do? That's 2. Off-panel Chronic says, "Okay, boy." And then,
show us.
so panel 2, like in The Dark Knight Returns, Bluntman and Chronic rise from the mud pit, ready to fight the enraged Cockknocker who screams, well, there weren't that many syllables, but I'll take that. That was amazing. Page 15, panel 1. Just like in The Dark Knight Returns, we go close on 2 heavily silhouetted gang members named Rob and Don. But they're dressed like Cockknocker Cockmandos. Use image from Jay and Silent Bob, a reboot as reference. Wearing his domino mask, Holden is fully lit from behind. Rob and Don horrified at the off-panel action. Rob, I will be Rob. Rob says, "You see Don, Bluntman, he nasty." And then Don says, "But Cockknocker Rob, he balls nasty." Because in panel 2, in the mud pit, Cockknocker smashes his giant fist into the crotch of Chronic, who goes wide-eyed and goes, "Ooh!" and then says,
Avenge me, Hemplight.
and then falls over into the mud. Panel 4, Bluntman takes Cockknocker down into the mud. Use image from Dark Knight Returns as reference. And Holden, his voiceover tells us,
Cockknocker doesn't get it.
"Close on the fighting in the mud, man." Go ahead.
This isn't a mud hole.
Closer on the fighting as Bluntman grabs Cockknocker's big-fisted arm.
It's a brie. Bris?
Bris.
Oh my god. Sorry. Bris. It's a bris.
Bris is where they cut your dick off in a religious ceremony. Page 16, panel 1, smaller panel. Bluntman breaks Cockknocker's arm. We hear crack, and Holden says,
And Bluntman's the moil.
"Well done, man. You knew you got once you had Bris.
Yeah, once I had Bris.
Right
I had
to
it.
moil.
Yeah.
Well done. Give it up for him. He had moil, man. Well done. Meanwhile, Cockknocker says, with his Panel 2, biggest panel. You made this book so much better. Panel 2, I'm gonna need you to read it to everybody. Biggest panel on the page, a muddy Bluntman stands over the down and defeated Cockknocker, surrounded by impressed Cockknocker Cockmandos. Use image from Dark Knight Returns as reference. Chronic is getting up again, and domino-masked Holden cheers him from the sidelines. The voiceover Holden says,
And as the Cockmandos looked on in horror, the Hemp Knight foiled the fist.
Panel 3, close on a former Cockknocker Cockmando Rob, who now wears a pot leaf painted across his face. Use image from The Dark Knight Returns as reference, and he goes, "The Cockknockers are dead. They are history. This is the mark of the future. Red Bank belongs to the Bluntman." Panel 4, you know what? I get to do a voice too. I will do it as Tom Hardy's Bane.
The Cockknockers are dead. They're history. This is the mark of the future. Red Bank belongs to the Bluntman.
Panel 4, a muddy Chronic appeals to Holden, who is taking off his smock. Bluntman is lighting a victory joint, and Chronic says,
Yo, sidekick! I got so much fucking mud in my eyes I'm as blind as Matt Murdock! Let me borrow your schmuck so I can wipe it off!
that Matt Murdock line only gets a laugh in a place like this. Panel 5, Holden hands off his smock to Chronic as Bluntman looks on, half smiling, and Holden says,
I can't believe this. You guys aren't just some dirt merchants around outside the convenience store dealing drugs. You're secretly superheroes and you're waging a war on crime.
Panel 1, interior quick stop cooler. We're back in the cooler. where gleeful Jay holds up Holden's smock triumphantly in his hand, with his other hand on the open door. Silent Bob's already giggling as he exits, and Jay says,
I just stole your schmuck, you fuck!
Panel 2, behind the joint holding Holden as the cooler door slams shut, leaving him alone, and the sound effect says, slam, and then off panel we hear Jay go, snooze! Panel 3, Holden is alone in the cooler, lit joint still in his hand. He's dwarfed by the sodas and milks, and he crawls out to the door.
I'm gonna get that smock back one day.
You know what? I'm gonna cut there. I want a bigger Ben Affleck performance out of that. Really? In fact, don't give me Affleck. Give me Matt Damon strong. Here we go. He's not here. And action.
I'm gonna get that smock back one day.
I like that. Give it up for him, man. Panel 4. Same setup, but now Holden hits the joint, and Holden's voiceover tells us,
I never got that smock back.
and then he says out loud as he's smoking his joint, he says very small,
Foul-mouthed, lil chucklehead.
well done. And then he hits the joint. Page 18, panel 1, interior panel room. We're back in the present. Holden's finishing his story in a close-up, and Holden says,
And I got fired for losing it, which is why it's okay. I went on to college for like a week later.
hold on, you're running too fast, and you're messing up the writing. And the writer hates that. Here we go. And take 2. Craig's got this. Look, find the inner Affleck.
Yeah.
You find it?
I'm trying to.
Here we go. Just J-Lo it. And action.
And I got fired for losing it, which was okay because I went to college like a week or 2 later. But then I dropped out of college by the end of my sophomore year. So that's why Banky and I self-published our first book, a black and white comic called 37, which was all about that summer I spent working at the Quick Stop.
Panel 2. Yeah, if you know Chasing Amy, that's the book that Banky and Holden made before Blunt Man of Crime. It was called 37 and shit. And so we tie it back in. The guy who wrote this must really like those movies. Panel 2, wide on the room. So we see Holden and Alyssa on stage, as well as Sean Hartle at the mic and the seated crowd. And Holden says,
37 won an Eisner Award and turned me and Banky into Comic-Con rock stars. That's when the Contender came out, calling. That's when the Contender came, calling and offered. That's when Contender came, calling and offered us a deal.
Contender was the label that they published their comics under. Back to you.
So I set up a studio in Red Bank with my best friend, and the first book we published was based on the shit I saw that night when I got crazy high with Jay and Silent Bob in the cooler at Quick Stop.
Give it up for him. That's a mouthful, ladies and gentlemen. Panel 3, close on Sean Hartle for a follow-up question. Sean says,
What the real Jay and Silent Bob think of the comic book? Jay and Silent Bob.
Close on Holden when he responds,
When I showed them my earliest pencils, instead of feeling flattered, they drew characters to look exactly like them. Silent Bob negotiated a deal on their behalf for likeness rights. So years later, when Banky sold the book to Miramax to make the movie, Jay and Silent Bob got a big chunk of change, which, if I remember correctly, they spent flying around the country to beat the shit out of a kid who met them on the internet.
How many people want to kick some ass?
Panel 5, Sean Hartle's at the mic and he's holding up his Chronicon badge and he says,
What do the real Jay and Silent Bob think about the reboot that Kevin James is making right now?
Page 19, panel 1, close on Holden, and as he corrects him and he says,
Kevin Smith, not Kevin James. The flick would have a fucking chance if Kevin James was directing it.
Oh,
but
shit.
I don't know.
Who's throwing shade at Kevin Smith?
But I don't know what Jay and Bob think about Blunt Man v. Chronic. I haven't seen either of them since Miramax was making the first flick.
Panel 2, interior Potzer's Inc. Day flashback. Jay and Silent Bob hold up the Wizard magazine featuring their comic counterparts. Use image from Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back as reference, and we hear Holden say,
They came to me looking for what they called a motherfucking movie check, but I was out with Blunt Man business by then. They said they were going to Hollywood to stop it, but they didn't, and that movie became a campy cult classic.
Panel 3, exterior Provasic night flashback. An image from Jay from a video camera threatening the viewer. Use image from Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back as reference, and Holden tells us in voiceover,
For a red hot minute, they were all over the news after being mistaken for the leaders of a terrorist organization.
and on the video Jay says,
I am the Clit Commander! I make that shit work, man! it like this.
Panel 4, Alyssa and Holden are on stage chuckling, and Alyssa says,
Click Commander was my nickname in the 90s when I identified as a lesbian.
How do you identify now?
I am pansexual in a committed relationship. How do you identify now?
As a dad more than anything else.
oh, remember, he's got a kid now, and reboot and stuff. I also think it's very pertinent information to know that Alyssa identifies as pansexual now. Because I took a lot of shit for calling her bisexual back in the day. Well, for calling her gay. They were like, she was bi. I was like, we say that in the movie too. They're like, no, you say she was gay. I was like, leave me alone. It was 24 years ago at this point. Page 20, panel 1. Alyssa closes out the panel with Holden smiling behind her, and Alyssa says,
From co-creator of Blunt Man and Chronic to co-creator of an actual human being, you continue to make fun stuff that also has something personal to say. So we thank you, Chronicon Guest of Honor, for all your work, and I thank you for letting me interview you for once. You're not only one of my favorite artists, you're one of my favorite people, too.
fucking pitch perfect rendition of that long speech. Give it up for her, ladies and gentlemen. Panel 2, Interior Convention Center hallway. We see the audience emptying out from Holden's panel, blending into the crowd of cosplayers. There's a loudspeaker announcement, which you could do, Lala. Who do you want to do it as? No, but do it as somebody fucking famous, bro. You've set up expectations now. You got another Joker you can do it as?
I have Morgan Freeman.
Oh, yeah! Morgan Freeman on a loudspeaker. Here we go.
Attention all extras. Report Hall H for the Blunt Man B chronic shoot in about 30 minutes. Thank you.
What else you got? Herbert the Pervert? Let's hear it.
Attention all extras.
Oh my God, every announcement should sound like that. Go ahead.
Report to the Hall H for the Blonde Man v. Chronic shoot in about 30 minutes.
Panel 3, interior panel room. The room's empty now, except for Holden and Alyssa near the stage, and one Silent Bob cosplayer packing up his bag. Holden sits on the edge of the stage, wrapping up cables. Alyssa's standing, holding her stomach, crossing her legs, and she says,
I gotta pee bad. Can you wait here for Ginny and Amy to get back?
Totally. I gotta wrap up all my gear anyway.
Panel 4, alone now. Holden sits on the edge of the stage, quietly wrapping up wires. Panel 5, same exact panel, but now Holden looks up with wide eyes in response to the sound of the door slamming from off panel. Maybe vibrate the panel, make it feel like a very big door slam. Says, Kerslam! Then panel 6, a smiling, seated Holden says in his first line from Jay and Silent Bob Reboot, the line that he said off camera in the movie, used image from Jay and Silent Bob Reboot as reference. Holden says,
Look at these morose motherfuckers right here.
and then the lower right corner of the panel, a quick stop sign indicates the end of our issue, the end. Give it up for our performers!